All right. Hello, world. If you've listened to that, you said, what's the deal with that intro music? As you can tell by the title, we're doing something a little special. For the next few episodes, it's going to be a little bit of a treat for you, a special crossover series between the Not Your Father's Movies podcast and obviously my Movie Fix podcast. We're going to be covering Richard Linklater's Before series.
Yep.
I am your host, Sirr. I love talking about movies. This is a place where I get my fix. You can follow my pod on whatever streaming service you're listening to, as well as YouTube. And follow me on Twitter at MyMovieFixPod. Today's episode, of course, the first in the series, is going to be Before Sunrise. And my guest to help me get my fix is none other than the Podfather himself, Jesse, and his wife, Liz. All right, you guys want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jesse. I am one of 3 hosts of Not Your Father's Movies. I am the first of the trio who's coming on. Next week, I think you're going to find Vito on here, and the week after that, I think Mike is going to make his rear his ugly head onto his pod. But he'll be here as well. And then we've also invited my wife, Liz.
Hello.
Because we both really won't like this movie and want to talk about it. And
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Well, yeah, spoiler. We kind of like the movie.
Speak for yourself. We'll get into that.
Oh boy. And we also thought maybe with all these guys talking about this romantic movie, maybe we needed an opinion from a woman.
That's right. I'm just here for the ride.
Yep.
Don't have a podcast of my own, but happy to be here.
And since we're doing a special crossover episode, our topics will cross over as well. Normally I start with recommendations of new movies, but since we're doing this romantic series before series, we figured we would do romance movies or rom-com movies, love story movies. So we recommend one of those to discuss, and then we're going to move on to nostalgia, talk about our nostalgia with this movie, how we feel, how, our nostalgic thoughts for this movie. And then we're going to discuss whether this is something we're going to show our kids. Is this the type of movie we'll show to our kids? Then we'll go on to our full review, then the spoiler section of the full review, and back to the Not Your Father's Movie section. We got to ask ourselves, is this a dad movie?
That's right.
Yeah, and obviously with our final, going to be our send-off, our doggy bag, our parting gift, we recommend something to you completely non-movie related that brought us joy during the week and we think might bring you some joy as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. You guys are our guests, either one of you. What's a romance movie, rom-com, something in the romantic sphere that you guys saw and love and want to talk about?
Well, I guess I'll open it up, and I'm going to cheat quite a bit, because it's not really a romantic movie, but...
Gonna open with a cheat, got it.
That's right, open with a cheat. It's a documentary about this couple, this married couple, and they were living, I think, in Santa Barbara, California, and they just randomly wanted a farm, and they knew nothing about it, so they bought this piece of land, and together they built up this dry, arid farmland that had been broken down for years, and they built it up to something kind of incredible to look at. And as you're watching the doc, you genuinely think they're going to fail. So it's just really awesome to see over I think 8 years time, something like that. You can see this arid land be plowed with orchards and grass and ducks and pigs and sheep and no, they don't have sheep and chickens.
They definitely have sheep.
They have sheep?
Yes.
I don't remember a farm without sheep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I enjoy seeing maybe it's because we're married now, so we've gone through the the whole dating thing. So it's cool to see people who are already married just succeed at something and do way more than that they would have done on their own. I think that's really cool.
And they have a baby at the end of it.
Spoilers. I guess it's a documentary, but
so what is the name of this fantastic documentary?
Crap! Did I not even say the name? It's called
The Biggest Little Farm.
The Biggest Little Farm. The Biggest Little Farm. You can find it on Hulu, or you can rent it on Amazon Prime.
Indeed.
Yeah, the biggest little farm.
It's a good one.
Is the dog.
They farm in harmony with nature.
Yeah, because I will spend hours on Netflix watching basically the first half of that, or maybe the second half, where people think it's impossible builds, or then there's the British show. Forgot the name of it, but there's the British show where basically people want to build, huge houses in the middle of nowhere, or they want to take over a castle and turn it into a house, and they've got a budget of, £6 million or whatever, and the whole show is it going to work? Are they going to run out of money? Is it going to end up terrible? What's it going to look like? So I've spent hours watching those type of shows. So this sounds like that in documentary form with, some actual real life drama thrown in. So it sounds dope.
Yeah.
That is the biggest little farm on Hulu. So yeah, check that out. What about you, Liz? What you got for us?
Well, I'm not a big romantic movie person, so the most recent one I watched was about 6 months ago. But we watched About Time, and I think it's probably my favorite romantic movie of all time. And I really like it because it kind of tackles like the concept of time and kind of just how your life plays out and what you can take back and what you cannot. And just so many, it just kind of like weaves together so many different themes about both romantic love and familial love and children, all into this beautiful 2-hour-long movie. And I'm also a huge fan of Rachel McAdams, and I think she's wonderful in that movie. So, I mean, if I had to recommend only one romantic movie, it would be that one.
Fantastic, yeah.
Would you say it's about time
to recommend it?
No.
To recommend it, and also what you said the movie was about time.
You stepped on his dad joke. Yeah. He was trying to make a dad joke, and you stepped on it.
It's all right. It's all right. Some dad jokes deserve to be stepped on, and that's one of them. I've heard
so many of them at this point. They just go right over my head. Like my brain has just learned to filter them out.
Which means I just make more.
Yeah.
Between Time Traveler's Wife and The Notebook, which is the best Rachel McAdams movie?
I did love The Notebook, but I also haven't seen it since I was like 18. So
there's that one part. It wasn't over. It still isn't over. That's the best 30 seconds of any romantic movie. I don't know about the whole movie itself, but that 30 seconds is magic.
It's pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
Liz is tearing up over here.
No, I'm not.
All right, so my movie choice I'm a big romance guy, so I can just pull these from my back pocket and no problem. But mine is Serendipity. This doesn't get enough love. It's one of my favorites. John Cusack, 2001. Wow, actually later than I thought. Yeah, 2001 movie. Basically, the plot is about the two meet, kind of touch hands over the same pair of gloves at the beginning of the movie for their Christmas shopping. They each take one pair, and then the movie is about. So they're I'm completely butchering this, but basically they each go. She believes that if two people are meant to be together, they'll be together. So they go to two separate ends of the hallway. They both go into the elevator. They pick a button, and if they come out at the same one they're meant to be, things happen to where they don't come out the same place. But the movie's about them eventually getting back together, or do they? I don't want to give it away, but they do. But yeah, so I love it. It's just I don't know. I miss that era of movie. John Cusack leading man, and I just like those. I don't know. It really works for me. It's probably one of my top 3 favorite rom-com romantic movies, and I'm sure I'll discuss the other 2 over the course of the series, talking about romance movies. But yeah, if you haven't seen Serendipity in a long time, check it out. It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it, and I haven't thought about it in 20 years. I remember when the movie was coming out. I remember
that.
Really? It's 2021. It came out 20 years ago. So you thought about it opening day and never since. Huh?
That's when all the trailers were out.
Ever since you were 10 years old.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was a talk of my household or whatever. I think.
I remember really liking that movie. I'm glad you reminded me of it. I haven't seen it in so long, but.
Yeah, like I said, it's one. I'll probably watch it. I don't know, once a year, something like that.
No, I'll probably give it a watch soon.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome. That's what this section's for. Okay. All right, so moving on to the actual movie we're here to discuss today. Before we actually really get into it, before Sunrise, let's just talk about, in general, your nostalgia for this movie. What is it evoking you? How do you, what does this movie do to your brain and your tinglies when you think about it?
This movie does a lot of things. I think I first saw this movie like
about 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was about 10 years ago. So yeah, I still hadn't seen. I watched it in college, and it was a weird experience. In college, that's when I started branching out with my movie taste. That's when I saw things that weren't just blockbusters for the first time ever. And this was just, I hadn't seen anything quite like this, where it was just like a very intense, like, character study all the way through. And then I had such strong feelings about both of these characters. And like, particularly, the characters are Jesse and Celine. Right? Mm-hmm. I really liked Celine, and I hated Jesse. Hated him. I just thought he was an absolute douchebag. But his character is still super interesting, and I love to like know more about him throughout that movie, and just their connection and their chemistry is amazing and super engaging throughout. Like, you wouldn't think a movie just about two people talking after they randomly meet is engaging, but yeah, I was hooked. And then immediately watched the next one, and then the third one a few years later. So now I'm hooked on the whole series.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Lis?
So I think we actually watched this movie together when we watched it for the first time.
Oh, we did, yeah.
Which is crazy. And
we weren't together at the time.
No. I think that it confirmed everything that I believed then about love and relationships. And so I was just like, yes, I get Jesse. I don't like Celine. I love Jesse.
Whoa, wait, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not me.
Correct.
Right,
Jesse in the movie. Yeah.
Thank
you. Neither Jesse really does
it. I just felt like he was the embodiment of everything that I thought at that time. And so I think that I didn't see without getting too into it, I didn't see his flaws, because I was just like, yeah, he gets it. He gets me. I'm with him all the way. Celine is she's great, but that's just not where I am. And so I did like the movie because it just, I love how it pulls you in from the very beginning. And I just love the really, really gradual progress in that movie. That they kind of tease out with their relationship. So I did like it, but then it also kind of devastated me. So it was I still remember that feeling. So yeah, that's very nostalgic.
Feeling of yeah. Okay. Won't say it. We'll get to this.
We'll get to that in a bit. So far as myself, nostalgia wise, just this movie. It's hard for me to separate it from the other two. So during this whole discussion, we'll try to say, we're going to acknowledge the other two movies who exist. We want to avoid getting too deep into the other two. So I don't want to say too much, but they're all tied together in my memory when I think about this. I remember when I think about loving it, I love these movies, not necessarily this movie. And the first time I saw it, I think I saw this, I can't even say when, probably 2005. When did Before Sunset come? I think it was before Midnight came out.
Sunset came out 2004, and then Midnight came out 2013.
Yeah, so I think I probably saw this somewhere 2012-ish, or right, 2013, before Midnight, because I remember hearing people excited for Before Midnight because they said the first two were great and blah 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 blah. So it made me want to go. Let me see what the hype is about. Before I'm a completionist. So I watched this movie and I didn't really care for it. I just thought it was kind of what you're talking about, two people talking a whole lot of nothing movie. Back when I first saw it. And then I saw the second one and kind of clicked.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get to the second one. Well, I'm waiting for Vito's conversation next week, but so the very end of that movie it did things to me, but yeah, so and then the third one saw that as well, and it just kind of, so they're all kind of locked together in I love that series. I love that 6 hours of movie watching, so this movie specifically just kind of it kind of faded and became a part of the three. So I didn't have a whole lot of specific, nostalgia for this movie particularly. But rewatching it, I'm really glad I did, because this is one of the things I own the box set for Christmas, maybe like 4 years ago or something. The only thing I wanted on my Christmas list was the 4 trilogy box set, So I own I think the Criterion collections. I don't know if it's a steel book. It was like $56 for the 3 movies together. It's still unopened. It's completely wrapped, but I just wanted to own it.
I love that.
So I'm glad I watched it because it really made me appreciate what this movie was. So it makes me surprised that he got the green light to make another one 10 years later. And because I don't know, box office wise, like who saw this movie, loved it, and said, I need another one. It's so hard to separate this from the other 2 in my mind. But
I have no idea how that happened. That story sounds fascinating, though. I want to know how both these movies came about.
Yeah,
you should crack open the Criterion collection and find out.
I'm looking at Wiki now. Budget of $2.5 million, made $5.5 billion. Obviously these are $1994, so it means a little bit more, but at the same time, not a huge hit, but so I don't know, very interesting. But yeah, so I guess I'll kind of dig deeper into that the further we go on to the series. But
real quick though, so ahead. Liz and I both said complete opposite opinions. I hated Jessie and liked Celine. She really liked Jessie and hated Celine. So do you remember how you felt about the characters for the first one?
No, I think it was just bland to me. I mean, at the time I watched it, I don't think I was in a place emotionally to care about this type of movie. I'm 33 now, so it means I can look at it from a different place. And like I said, we'll get to that in a bit when we get into the review. But at the time I watched it, it was just, just a movie, so neither character particularly landed pretty heavy on me. And even now, after my rewatch, I don't necessarily see myself in either one of them. I see myself as an older person looking at 2 younger people, and I would kind of look at it through that lens. So before we actually get to the full review, let's little mini spoiler, mini overall thoughts, kind of summed up into a sentence. Is this the type of movie you want to show to your kids?
I don't.
Now, you share the kids.
We do.
Yeah, so
it's okay. We tend to have different opinions about this at times.
Yeah.
Indeed. Okay.
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and say I don't think I'll ever be like, hey kids, let's watch Before Sunrise together. I don't think that's ever going to be a thing that we're going to do. This is something where like when they go to college, I don't know, maybe I associate it with college age kids because I was in college when I watched it, but I could be like, what's a good series that you should watch sometime far away from me? It's the Before series. So that's how I feel about it. Like for whatever reason, this just it feels uncomfortable to watch. Like not because it's a rom-com. I would have like no problem watching About Time with them or something. But like this just feels too intense.
Is it because you would never want our daughter getting off a train with a total stranger?
Maybe.
All right, Liz, what about you?
Yeah, definitely not. Nope.
Oh, wow.
I would not, in good conscience, show this movie to my children. At least as, like, my kids who are under 18. I guess I could maybe see myself saying, this is a movie that I really liked. And I think it has a lot to say about relationships. But the themes are very mature and I think can really throw you off a good path about your view of relationships if you take them too seriously. And so for that reason, I don't think I could recommend it to my kids. Although I personally love the movies
I think
whole, so.
Yeah, I agree with the conclusion, maybe not the why. Like, when I want to show my kids something, I think they should be primarily fun or historic landmarks in film. And this just feels really intense. Like, I feel like psychoanalyzing them at the end, which is why I find the movie so interesting. And that doesn't sound great to do with my kids around. I don't know. Like, that just sounds like super intense. And I don't want that experience with them. If I'm going to watch a movie with them, I think it should be more fun.
That's interesting. Don't know if I agree with that, but I digress.
Me either. We'll get into that. Okay, so for me, I am a hard yes. I am a very firm yes.
Okay.
But again, it's more, to me, it's the series. Again, so I know I keep cheating. It's so hard for me to, talk about this movie in a vacuum because it is... It may not have been this in 1994, but right now it is part one of a 3-part series. So it's really hard for me to speak about it in a vacuum. But this series in general, it embodies so much. I don't know. I always use this phrase. It's capital I important to me. It's something that I learn about myself watching these movies. I look at my life differently. I can see, like I said, watching this at 33, I can see things in them that I may have looked at differently when I was younger. So it does actually make me, just hearing you speak, Liz, made me question myself just a bit, because your kids are just a little bit older than mine. My oldest is 2, so it's like when I talk about things I want to show to my kids, it's more of a hypothetical. It's more of a, it just he's not old enough to really appreciate a movie, and I'm still, they're still young enough where I'm thinking about kids in the abstract, So
yep, I get
it. Once I get older, it's like, I may be. If I show you the wrong thing at the wrong time, I'm shaping your mind.
It is true. Yeah.
That could be a huge mistake. It's like I could be showing you this because, look at the life changes. Look at the lessons they learned, and you're just watching this, think, oh man, I gotta get off that train. I gotta fall in love. So it's like, I don't want to teach these kids the wrong lesson at the wrong time. But like I said, I do think, kind of a mix of what you're saying. Maybe when my kids are in the later teen years or even older, maybe they're in their early 20s out of my house, but this is something that it's not too late for me to share with them. I want to watch this with my kids in between the age where they're old enough to date and before they settle down and have kids themselves. So in that little gap, I feel like we need to watch all 3 of these just to, get that little imprint of kind of the bigger picture about what relationships are about. And, this first movie is just, it teaches you, I don't know, we'll get into it later, but I think just watching these together I think it's important, maybe developmentally, or just, I think it'll help shape, it helps shape my mind. So I kind of feel like I want to pass that down. But again, I feel like I got to catch them in the right age gap to where they can appreciate all these together.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're describing a completely valid desire, though, right? Like, I've heard older parents say that, like, the younger years don't really compare to, like, the young adult and adult years of their children, because at that age is when they really do get to share, like, what's the most important to them, and you're more, like, on equal levels, and you could look at things together. And so I think that your instinct is completely understandable and relatable, that would be, like, the ideal age to start talking about this with your children and kind of share it together, rather than, here is something that I want you to understand,
Yeah. I think there are some movies I want to watch because they're fun and I like them. And then, just to me, like, movies mean things, they, like, the writer doesn't write just, action. And a lot of times movies are capital M movies. They, they're a bit more, they mean
films.
More. Yeah. Well, not even that, just, they're important to watch because they can have an impact on you. So I want to be at the right age when I have that impact.
Yeah,
So,
the right age thing is really important. I'm also scared when my kids are the right age and they like I'm sorry, I would be kind of sad if our children started being like, I really understand Jesse's point of view here in this movie.
That's the danger. Is I think there are multiple conclusions you can come to from this movie, which we can get into.
Yeah, we've talked, up to it. I think it's time. Let's dig in deep. So, this point forward, we're going to get into the full review of Before Sunrise.
All right, I have an admittedly insane idea, but if I don't ask you this, it's just going to haunt me the rest of my life. I have no idea what your situation is, but I feel like we have some kind of connection, right?
Yeah, me too.
Great. So listen, here's the deal. This is what we should do. You should get off the train with me here in Vienna and come check out the town. We just got into Vienna today, and we're looking for something fun to do. Sprechen Sie English?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Could you speak German for a change?
Now I'm going to call my best friend in Paris, who I'm supposed to have lunch with.
All right, that was from the trailer for Before Sunrise. So, just like I said, we're going to split this up into non-spoiler and spoiler section, but just basic premise-wise, this movie is a 12-hour window into the lives of two people. They meet on the train. He convinces her, they have a real connection on the train. It's his stop to get off the train because he's going to the airport. He says, hey, I know this is crazy, but I want you to come with me. Let's walk around for the night and let's just do that. And for whatever reason, he convinced her. She said yes. And this movie is the story of how that night went. So, Jeb, before we get into it, I know we've pretty much given our overall thoughts, but, do you recommend this movie? What are your overall thoughts? Do you like this movie? How do you feel about it in general?
I think that one of my favorite things about this movie is it manages in a very short amount of time to at least brush over all the topics that are pretty crucial in a relationship. They're topics that especially young people wonder about, ought to be wondering about. They're questions that come up in relationships. And I almost feel like it's a commentary on what the beginning of a relationship is, and maybe it tries to get to the heart of the questions that people ask and are really important to them as they try to decide, should we build a life together? Should we be together? Is this worth the risk? And I think it really succinctly gets at that and kind of gets to the heart of like the human spirit and like what we're all yearning for. And so for that reason, I think it does that in a really beautiful way. And it does it in a way that's really unique, I think, in just a basic conversation between two people. It's very unassuming because of that. And so for that reason, I just think, I guess so thematically and I guess just like the way that it's done, for those two reasons in particular, I really admire the way that they did this movie, and I would absolutely recommend it.
Yeah. I think I'll echo a lot of what you just said. I think this movie is like exceptionally made, and I'm not even sure if it's exceptionally acted. The dialogue is so good, though.
I think it's Sir, go on.
I think they're good. I think they're good actors, and I think I don't think I've ever watched a movie where the actors and the lines seem to be so in sync. It just seems like the movie is made for these two people. To the point where I can't even tell if it's acting anymore. I don't know what that is. But it's electrifying. Like I feel like when I watch this movie, I feel like I'm walking around a city. We walked around at midnight in places, in like cities and towns and
in places.
I don't know, like San Francisco or like Santa Barbara, and like this movie takes me back to that. And it makes me feel all those things, like really, truly getting like to know a person. And I've never had a movie been able to do that before, to this extent. And I think their conversations are interesting to me. Like, I think they are talking about important things. They're talking about, it ranges from love and life and parents and all sorts of things.
Where you go after you die.
Like, they talk about things
questions
that we all think about, which is why they're probably why they're walking around together. But like, yeah, I'm entertained all the way through, and I love to think about these characters and think about all the things they're saying and how they kind of reference that throughout the movie. Like they'll reference small things that they're saying, and you can see those small things grow into like deeper parts of their personality and realize that wasn't just like a passing comment. This dialogue is exquisitely written. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, Rick, go see it if you haven't.
Yeah, and it's going to be 3 yeses as well for me, because I think over the course of the last 10 minutes, I think I've been a little bit too negative. I think I've been comparing, saying as a whole these need to be watched, but not necessarily this one. But especially just with this last rewatch, standing alone, this is an excellent just movie. I think kind of what you were talking about, Liz. The writing is the story that it's telling. It's just so it's so unique. I hate when I say so unique, because unique means one of a kind. So it's unique. You can't tell this story at kids in high school together, even kids that go to 2 separate schools. It has to be written as it is, with people that are in 2 completely separate different countries, pre-text messages and iPhones and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Because it really is boiling the fact that life is finite or whatever, just the fact that in the morning we're not gonna see each other anymore, and it kind of that gives you permission to shut off layers of things I want to hide, or things it's just the writing is really good. The story couldn't really have been told any other way, because in any other movie there's tomorrow. Well, I won't say in any, but it's hard to write the type of movie where there isn't tomorrow. There isn't, we have this amazing day now, we see each other at school the next day, or, it's like I text you and now we have to follow up on that. So it's just, it kind of leaves off in a place where, you're leaving the same place the characters are.
Yeah.
Because in a modern movie, in real life, they can text each other. There is the aspect of wondering what happens, but you kind of know, well, when I'm not there, they're going to be texting each other, calling, they're going to see each other. I wonder how that relationship's going to end. But in this movie, just kind of give with the ending, he does go back to America and she goes to Paris. So it's like they themselves don't know what's going to happen in the future. They can't talk to the other person, and you as a viewer are in that same kind of, what's you're left with that same emptiness that they kind of feel. So yeah, definitely recommend this movie. Definitely really enjoy it. So now let's kind of, there's actually a lot we can kind of get into even before we get to spoilers. So I think it'll be a fun place to start, just actually starting with the beginning. So the beginning of the movie, they have a good little connection, but connection you can have with somebody in the course of, I don't know, it was 30, 45 minutes, an hour max while they're on the train before they got to the next stop. And he's getting off the train, and he has that moment where it's like, I got to do it. I got to go back and shoot my shot, So he goes back and says, this is going to sound crazy. I just think we have a great connection. Get off the train with me. He does this I hate the little fishing motion that really annoyed me in hindsight.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I know this is audio podcast.
Even after she says yes, he does it again.
Let's do this. So he says, let's come with me. Let's go. And she does.
Actually, I love the like the exact, I don't know the exact phrasing, but he's basically like, if you're married and you're like
that was
40,
beautiful. Yeah.
If you're married and you're 40 and you're looking back over your life and you're looking back at all the other people that you could have been with, well, here I am. I'm that guy right now. You can get off the train with me, and you won't have to say, I wonder. And it'll save both you and your future husband, who you're unsatisfied with, a lot of heartache.
Yeah, for the record listener, he completely butchered that, but that was beautiful writing.
That's right. I did butcher that because, like, Ethan Hawke says it very well. Like I said, they go to, the actors and the lines go together like peanut butter.
Speaking to your About Time reference earlier, Liz, he was like, you're going to be, you're going to be married for 30 years. You're going to be thinking about that time that you met that guy on the train. I'm that guy. You could have got off with me back then. So right now you're time traveling.
Yeah.
You're going back in time. You're meeting me. You can get off this train. You can have a terrible time. And then you can remember that you're glad you are the place you are with your husband. You made the right decision because you got off the train with the guy and it didn't work out. So you made the right decision. So you're time traveling right now. So I'm butchering it too, but it was just, it's just really good writing. So so
it was, it was clever writing.
Oh, here we go.
I don't like the strategy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a
clever writing. Don't like the character strategy. Because I actually hate that about, like, I hate that, like, dreaming that he's referring to. Like, I think that's actually really dangerous in relationships. And he's just like, you're going to be doing this, and, like, let's find out what happens. And then, but I also wanted to bring up, if I'm allowed to in this section, I thought it was really interesting if you pair that with what she shares with him about her grandmother in the chapel later on. Am I allowed to bring that up, or is that a spoiler?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Like I said, we're gonna discuss it all. But yeah, so later on in the chapel, she's talking about how her grandma basically lived a life of regret. She was that in the future person. She was with the guy she didn't necessarily think was the right guy. She pined over her own version of the guy on the train from 40 years ago. So there is that, that mirror aspect to, I guess that, again, maybe that's just really good writing. Maybe that played into her decision. He didn't know that, but maybe that played into her decision. She knew what her grandmother went through, and she was like, well, I don't want to be my grandma. Let me get off this train and see where it leads, So.
And then also she says somewhere in there that she's a person who just thinks about death, like imagines herself as an old lady, like reviewing her life in her head. So him coming up and saying this was like the perfect thing to get her to go with him, because like this is something that she does on a regular basis.
And watching the movie, she was the, I don't want to say aggressor, but she was the more bolder person throughout the whole, like, their little relationship. She, skipping forward a little bit there, whenever they had their first kiss or whatever, he was real shy and bashful. It's like, well, it's really pretty, and there's the sunset and we're at the top of the thing, and she's like, are you saying you want to kiss me?
Yeah.
So there were a few moments like that where she was kind of she was a little bit more bolder and more confident in herself. So it's like, I think that does maybe read into her character a little bit more, that she was willing to get off the train in the first place. But yeah, just in a 2021 mindset, I would, I have a daughter now. It's like, no, do not
never,
ever do that.
Please don't get off with a stranger in a strange city in a language that you don't really know how to speak.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
But I do think that, she has a hold on herself. Like, she has a very deep seated control. She's very much in control of herself. She kind of, like, she has a really good idea of who she is and where she stands. Where, like, and, like you were just mentioning, she thinks of herself as an old lady, looking over her life. And what does he say?
He says he's a 13-year-old boy. He's
a 13-year-old boy who, like, he's like, is this okay that I'm doing this? Because I don't feel old enough to be, like, living this adult life. And I really think that is, like, really sums up the entirety of their conversation, because throughout their entire conversation, she's like, I read a book once about this. I watched a documentary once. Do you know about this? Because I know everything about it. Have you been to this graveyard? Because I was just thinking about how, like, this girl died when she was 13, and now I'm older than she is. Like, she's a really deep thinker. She's always thinking about things, and she knows who she is. It's really very starkly contrasted with him. And that's actually something that I don't think I saw that as much the first time I saw it as I did rewatching it. Just like how different the two of them are.
Yeah.
I think, 10 years ago, whenever when I first watched it, he's like, oh, he's cool. He's got the leather jacket and he's got the, he's meeting the French girl. He's saying all the right things and he's a little shy and blah, 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 blah. But as a 33-year-old, I was like, oh, he's a child.
He very much is.
He's very, scared and, he's talking about, oh, I don't like me. And like, there's so much about like, he has no idea what he's doing and he
has no money,
making bad decisions. And it's like, no. But at the same, like, I think the spoiler section on this is going to be really weird because it's not.
We have spoiled things so far. Yeah, we're spoiling the movie.
It's the movie is watching the movie, not knowing what happens in the movie. So, I'm going to drop the bumper right here.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Who cares? We're now officially in spoiler section. We can talk about whatever. So, I tried to, I was like, well, let's not talk about the end. But it's like, there's so much. It's like, there is no, you're not giving away much. It's just, the movie is watching what happens and watching the interactions and the conversation. So, whatever. We're in spoilers now. So, yeah. But, I don't know. Watching it a little bit older now, I think she's more, I don't know, hurt or defensive or, I didn't see that when I was younger. And, I see it as an older person. And he, on the flip side, just more, not naive, but inexperienced and just, I want to say shy, but like in a negative way. I don't know the right word I'm looking for, but he's not the confident, hip, leather jacket guy I thought of when I watched it the first time. He's bumbling his way through. He didn't have the confidence to make the moves, and she's kind of she's being the more confident person throughout all these little interactions, and so it's like kind of. That's why I like rewatching, movies, years later, because you get that different perspective. It's like, oh, he's not. Yeah,
he's very negative, very cynical.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I go back and forth on this because like I think they're both like he points out that like she is like constantly making comments up like kind of negative comments towards men. I think he has something there. I think that's right. I think he's being a little childish when he says that right there. But like I think she's kind of bitter. Like she has the old woman kind of bitterness on the world. She mentions before that like her parents had kind of wanted to like knock the dreaminess out of her, right, and give her like always push her towards a practical career. So it seems like she, in fact, in some ways, I think the reason why she goes for Jesse is because he is the whimsical child. He does have like some parts of cynicism about him, but I think she calls it out very clearly, and it's not true cynicism. It's just the fact that he's not the center of attention.
I don't think that's true.
Of the two of them though, he's the one who seems to like the way he's talking about what's it called when you die and come back again? Reincarnation, right? When he's talking about reincarnation and he talks about like seeing his grandma like through the mist, like there's something like he talks about things that are a little more like out there, a little more magical than what she's talking about. She talks about death as in like a more practical way.
What's your viewpoint, Liz? How do you saying you don't see it that way? How do you see him?
I do see him as very cynical. Like for instance, the poem where there's the, I don't know what you call him, just the homeless guy by the river, and he's like, give me a word and I'll write you a poem, and he writes them a pretty beautiful poem.
Yeah,
I really liked it, and she loves it. She absolutely loves it, and then he goes, oh, come on. He probably has the same poem for every person. It's not tailored towards us. And I feel like that's one example of his cynicism that's formed by his parents' failed marriage. His parents' failed marriage has completely, it's like a filter through which he sees all other relationships. And he doesn't, from what I saw in the movie, he doesn't really seem to think that at least that they exist. Like many good relationships exist. Okay. I think he might concede that they can, but I don't think he believes that it happens very often.
I do agree with that last part, but to go back to the cynicism thing, he does have it. But I also picked up on some other things this time. When he first meets her, one of the first things he says is, I can call out any bullshit since I've been a kid." And then later he mentions that when he was a kid, he caught his parents arguing about how he had been a mistake. And from that point on, he realized that like life hadn't been what he thought it was. And notice the two times that he gets really cynical are the palm reader and the poet. So I think what it is this guy had been lied to. He had assumed, he had been told by his parents how special he was, and then realized he's not really special because he's just an accident to them. And then anytime somebody tells him he's special, I think he reverts back to that cynicism. Like, no, of course that can't be true.
Well, he said in the movie was basically that when he heard that he was an accident, at first it kind of was really negative on him, and he took it hard. But then he wore more or less as a badge of honor. Like, anything I do is my own now. I'm responsible for my life because I'm not supposed to be here, so I make my own path. So. Just kind of going back to that poem, I do think it's kind of like a microcosm for how you see relationships. Because I too thought when I walked, when they walked away, I was like, oh man, that was a beautiful poem. And he just wrote that. It's like, I want to walk across that guy. I want to see that guy's movie because he's an excellent poet and blah blah blah. And then Jesse's cynicism, like he probably wrote, he probably just has a pre-written poem and he kind of subs out words here and there to fit the people. And part of me. It snapped off a small piece of my heart. It's like, yeah, maybe you're right. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? Who cares? It was beautiful. It fit the moment. Like that poem was perfect for the two people listening to it at the time. And maybe it was something he had heard before. He had in his back pocket that he pulls out to fit. But we needed that poem at this time. And that poem was beautiful. So it was worth the change we gave to him, and it was a really nice poem. So I think that really kind of, how you feel about that poem really kind of sheds how you feel about relationships. And if you are the cynical and, there's no magic in the world type of person, you may view it through that lens. But yeah, so I think, we're talking negative and chipping away at it, but I do think that they're imperfect people, but I think the writing is perfect for them. I think this movie, it really is the magic, the capital M magic of what this situation can be. Everybody, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of people have that what if, that what if relationship or whatever. I think this movie is the like quintessential that boiling down into what the perfect what if could be. And, it's not a spoiler to say that they end up getting back together because there are two more movies with them in it. But I think that it is that, I think this is that Disney magic. This is the perfectly written story of the what if night. Again, I think it works because they have to go their separate ways. But I do think just the story of these two different types of people and how they get to know each other over the course of the night and the people they run into, I think this is a perfect embodiment of that type of story.
Yeah.
And Liz very much disagrees. Go ahead. I feel like that
No, I do agree with you. I was just kind of thinking about how my view of their relationship has evolved over time, because I think that the first time I saw this movie, I really loved their relationship, and I thought that that sort of chemistry is in a way what everyone dreams of, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do think that it's possible to have really good chemistry and a really bad relationship. In other words, you can click with somebody personality-wise and be super incompatible with them, like at your core. And I almost think that that's what is going on here. I think you can have, I think they have really good chemistry, and it's really, really neat. But then I think that as they talk more and more, you kind of get at like these deep held beliefs and this like very, very different ways of viewing the world and interacting with the world. And then if you just kind of like you're seeing it in one night, but if you spread that out and you play it out over decades and all the things that life holds for you, if you do stick with somebody, I just think that like it's kind of a recipe for disaster. And so it's hard for me not to see that now, like a decade later, having been married for 6.5 years. It's really hard for me to ignore that part of it now.
Yeah, I think, again, not talking about the other two movies, but
but you have to.
It's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this is that Disney magic for me because it's that what if night and that perfect, chemistry night and not seeing each other again. And then maybe you do get back together. So there's that aspect of this movie. But the other two movies in their own way very much address what you're talking about.
Yes.
Where it's not just, happily ever after. We actually do get back together. We're perfect for each other, blah, blah, blah. But it really gets into what that means and to different people. We'll talk about that later, but I just want to say if you're listening to this and you haven't watched the other two and you're in that negative space because you don't want to watch this knowing that they do end up getting together and life isn't like that and blah, 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 it's addressed.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've got a question for you guys now that we're talking about sequels, and we're talking about sequels vaguely. I don't think we're going to go into really particular parts because we got 2 other episodes about that. But watching the sequels, does that change your guys' idea about the characters in this movie? Do they seem different to you when taken as a whole, as opposed to like when you first saw just this movie?
Yeah, definitely. It's because you just see pure potential when you just see the movie on its own. But when you see it in the context of how it plays out over, what is it, a couple decades?
Yeah.
Each movie's 10 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How it plays out over a couple decades, you see that this is just the beginning, and you see the themes that do not disappear. And I just feel like it holds true for anybody's relationship, right? Like the dating phase of a relationship holds much more meaning when you see it in the context of a long-term relationship rather than just dating on its own.
Yeah. And like I said, I've been out of high school 15 years now. So it's like, it makes you see that person in high school, and you see them 10 years later and you can see how they became the person that they are now, So when you're watching Before Sunrise, you're just watching a movie, it's just a beautiful, love story or whatever. But in the context of the other two movies, it really shapes how you look back at it. It's like, oh, okay, so I'm watching the story of how that person became who they became. I can see how that person used to be this person and how they view the world really, so again, not getting into it, but I think it honestly, for me, if this movie existed in a vacuum, I think it's a good love story, but it would feel empty because I was like, part of that is, there is a bit of that magic in not knowing what happens. I was just talking about a movie last week where it's like it was a standalone Netflix film, and it's like part of me wants to know the sequel and what happens after this, but at the same time, the sequel can be terrible. It can ruin how I felt about the first movie. So I am glad that it exists on its own. But there's a piece of me that this is all I get. When I read books, I prefer books that have 4 or 5 books in a series because I hate reading a book and falling in love with the characters and that's all you get. But at the same time, you can get a great first book and then you read that second book and it's like, oh, well, now I don't like the first book as much anymore. So there always is that, that threat. But just like back to what you were saying there, I do think knowing that the other two movies exist first and foremost and having watched them, it does shape how I view these and look at these and look at the characters. And I just, again, part of that is age. I'm these movies came out 20 years ago. So it's like there is that aspect for them. It's all kind of rolled into it. But yeah. Definitely, like I said, rewatching it, you see things you didn't see initially, and you kind of look at them through a different lens.
Yeah. Like if I hadn't seen the other two movies, I think you're right. Like on this movie, on the surface of this movie, I think Jesse does seem very cynical. But now I take this with a huge grain of salt because I didn't watch the other two movies on purpose because I didn't want it to mess with my perception of this movie. But I don't remember him being as cynical in the next two. So that's why it seems like not so much as a character trait, but something weird that's going on right then. And also, like, he has a breakup, right? That's another reason why he's acting
Very
really
recently,
cynical.
yeah.
Very recently.
I'm gonna take 2 seconds from that.
Mm-hmm.
But as a 33-year-old, I can see how dangerous it is meeting that guy at that age and thinking, oh my gosh, he's just a sweetie and he's so in touch with no. He just got his heart broke. That's a terrible. You don't want to meet him right now because he's going to say good things and get back to his normal self in a few months. So you don't want to meet that guy right now because he's sensitive and he just got his heart broke. So he's fluctuating emotionally right now.
Yeah.
So it's like rewatching it and kind of, because I forgot that part. I haven't seen this movie in years. So you get back to it and you see that he just got broken up. He literally just broke up with his girlfriend 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
He had, he's broke. He doesn't have a lot of money. So he saved up a bunch of money, flew to an unknown country with a language he doesn't speak to see his girlfriend, and they broke up. So he's in a bad place emotionally. So like I said, again, meeting him at this point, you're not even meeting really the true him, because you're in an entirely different country, you barely, speak the same language, and he's in emotional turmoil. So again, So I mean to interrupt what you were saying, but I forgot to, I want to drop 2 seconds to mention that.
I think you're right. But also, like, I think this might be it's definitely to his benefit, right? Like, I don't think he would have asked to go have lunch with Celine in the train car if he hadn't just broken up. And also, I don't think he would be talking nearly as seriously, talking about all of his weird thoughts that he's been having on the train, which are genuinely kind of interesting. And also, I don't think he asks her to go off the train. So, like, I think the best parts that we see of Jesse actually come from him, the breakup, except for the cynicism part, which I think is also kind of interesting. Like, maybe, like, I think I don't know. I've never. Yeah, I guess you hear sometimes, like, turmoil can bring out the best of some people, and I think it's accentuating some good character traits and his cynicism, as you're pointing out.
Yeah, I know I'm in a gush fest at this point, but there are so many reasons this movie is kind of a perfect what if ism.
Oh yeah,
because had he met her on the train heading to his girlfriend, it's never what happened. So there, part of you in your mind as you get older thinks about all the people that could have potentially been your soulmate, especially if you're single when you're 30 plus. You're thinking about, maybe there was that guy I should have gave a second chance, or, maybe there was that girl I should have, maybe I broke up with her for selfish reasons. I should give her another shot. I mean, there's so many things like that. If he had met her in a different situation, a different, literally weeks apart, same person, same train, but 2 weeks earlier, they would have just nodded and kind of went their separate ways. So there's so much about being at the perfect place, the perfect time.
Yeah,
that's true.
The writing I thought was really beautiful, man. There's so many. There are little quotables I can't even remember that just. I may have to rewatch it again. I was like, I told myself I should write this down so I remember that. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, go watch it because it's a beautiful movie. So any last thoughts before we wrap up the review section? Any other things you want to say about this movie?
Oh, last thing. I just realized I never fully answered this. But if I have the sequels in mind, then I have so much sympathy, or not sympathy, like empathy. I understand Jesse so much more. And I begin to not like Celine. And again, it's not because of how she's presented in this movie. It's because I have memories of the next two. And I start to see some seeds, the seeds of bitterness that I see sown here, and then I get very strong.
I don't remember the sequels well enough to comment on that.
One scene I will point out, and hopefully you guys bring it up, is they're in a church, and Jesse's being a little like, I don't know. There's something, a lot of parts in this movie they talk about, like she seems to have a lot of respect for things that are like magical or sacred, whether it's the palm readers or the graveyard or a church. She always seems to have like some. It looks like she's moving with respect for their surroundings, and Jesse is not. And then in the third one, there's a particular scene. Like I haven't seen the third one in 8 years, but there's one thing scene I cannot shake out of my mind that makes me realize just how much she had changed from this movie to that one, and seeing the seeds here. All right, maybe.
I'm interested to see if you rewatch it, if you still feel the same, or if that's colored, by the fact you haven't seen it in a while and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, see, I don't even know. I think what's so great about these movies is like watching this at different stages in life and having a different view on every single one of them, and then as on the series as a whole. So I look forward to, after this podcast, going back and rewatching Before Sunset and Before Midnight.
Any final thoughts, Liz?
I don't think so. I feel like I kind of said my piece. I think I do, like Jesse was just saying, I think what makes a movie really good is if it's possible to come away from it with a lot of varying viewpoints.
Yeah.
I think that shows how multifaceted it is, how in-depth the dialogue gets, and I just have a lot of respect for the script writers and the actors, and just the movie as a whole because of that.
Indeed. And me, I did want to bring up this little quote I just remembered. It was, there's so much, I guess, now that you've said it, I can't stop thinking about, Liz, just how dangerous this might be to a young, impressionable mind, because there was, rewatching it, there was a scene, even rewatching it myself, I thought, oh, that's so beautiful. But, again, if you're a 16-year-old girl, you might, get all the wrong lessons from it. But he was, basically, they were lying in the grass, and he was saying how much basically he doesn't like himself, and, oh, girls love me when you do that. So he goes, I don't, I just being with me is so hard, and I don't want to be around myself, and you might blah blah blah. But when I'm with you, it feels like I'm not myself anymore, something like that. It was just, you could, like, I know she's an actress, but just like you saw the way her eyes just, oh, he did it. You said you unlocked the magic key. Her eyes just go, oh, you said the right word. So I didn't want to let that go without mentioning that, because there are multiple moments like this where the writing is just so. It's just beautiful. It's just, like I said, I understand I'm watching actors pretend to be characters being written by writers, but there are little moments like that where you're lost. You're just watching, magic. Yeah. So I very much like this movie. Like I said, again, I very much, like I said, it's like there are some things that are less than some of the whole. So like individually, and maybe all these movies are 8, but all together they're all 10s or whatever, But yeah, like I said, individually, I really thought this was great, and I loved it even more as part of a series. So if you're listening to this, I definitely recommend you keep listening. But before we get to our send-off, we got a very important question to ask. Is this a dad movie?
That's right.
Podfathers, Not Your Father's Movies question of the day. Is this a dad movie? Jesse?
Yeah,
do you want to explain to us what a dad movie is?
If only I could. All right, so all right,
you're gonna have to listen to 60 hours worth of podcast to really get the question.
Get the sense of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different ways to view a dad movie. Part of that is like, I think the way Sirr described it is like a dad just like falling asleep in his chair, watching just.
Yeah. Again, butchering it. I can see your face, listeners at home. She was like, what? So
You're right.
my description of what a dad movie is the movie that you come into the living room or you come downstairs or whatever, and your dad's asleep on the couch with that movie playing. You know, something he played for himself, and
That's right.
asleep, and it's just the type of movie your dad watches for his own enjoyment and just falls asleep watching. That's right. That's my idea of what a dad movie is. Yeah.
So movies for dad's own enjoyment, a movie that dad is really excited to show the kids, or I got a bunch of movies that I just associate exclusively with my dad. It's whether or not I like them is not even part of the question. Is that they just belong to him. And like for me, like I really like this movie. Like I think this is a great movie. But I'm not sure if I want my kid, so part of it is, do I want my kids to associate this movie really heavily with me? And I don't think I do. So one of the weird things about movies that offer so many different facets of the human experience to people, those are great movies to watch. But if I'm what if they misinterpret the movie and they watch this years down the line, they're gonna be like, Dad likes this movie. That's bizarre. I can't believe Dad likes, what if they get something totally different than I was getting out of it? So I think that's part of it for me, why I don't want them to associate with me, and also part of the reason why I don't really want to watch it with them. I will, of course, talk about it with them. Anyway, that's besides the point. But also, am I just going to... I don't watch this movie over and over and over again for my own enjoyment. I watch this movie every few years. I think... Again, it's a great movie. It's not like one of my go-to standbys if I'm in the mood for movie watching. So yeah, I was really excited to do this podcast as a collaboration with Sirr, partially because I wanted to talk about these movies on the pod, but I had no idea how I could justify this as a dad movie to myself. And so I got to say, no, it's not a dad movie, but I am super happy to be here talking about it. And it's still a great movie.
Liz, what about you? Is this a dad movie?
Am I allowed to answer that?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm not a dad.
Sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Again, it's your interpretation of what a dad movie is,
I think this movie asks too many questions and gives too few answers to be a dad movie.
To give you the weird interpretation idea that I was...
Yeah, it's just I don't think it's actually trying to say... Okay, maybe I shouldn't say this. I don't know what this movie, if you could say, this is what I gained from this movie. I learned this important thing from watching this movie. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that has to somehow be in the definition of a dad movie. It's I gained something from this. I got an answer to a question. Although I still don't have a good grasp of what a dad movie is at all. But it just doesn't seem like it to me. So
yeah.
So 2 no's from you, and I will be the sole yes on this one. Yeah. And I hate that because there's so many episodes I listen to of you guys, and that is not a dad. I say hard no on is this a dad movie, and you guys always say yes. So I look forward to being on an episode where you guys say yes and I get to say no. The only episode I have been on is one where we talked about the Big Sleep. You all said no, and again, I'm the guy that says yes. But
no, it was three yeses to 1 no. We passed that as a dad movie.
I talk you guys into giving me the other yes.
Yeah, you had to talk me. I eventually came on and said that, but I mean, there are two more hosts from Not Your Father's Movies with 2 very different opinions about this series. I think I have an idea of what Vito is going to say. I have no idea what Mike's going to say about any of this, but yeah.
I think I have no idea how Before Midnight could be a no on dad movie. I think. But anyway, so so for me, I say yes because pretty much the opposite of what Liz said. All the reasons she says no, I say yes it is because I think this is as a dad, there are lessons I want to teach my kids, and sometimes that is in the form of conversation, sometimes it's in the form of showing them the father I can be, and sometimes it's watching movies. And I feel like maybe not just this movie on its own, yes, but just this as part of the series. So I guess I'm cheating a little when I say yes, because on its own, I don't know. But as part of the series, since all these 3 episodes come together, I'm cheating. So I'm going to say, as part of the series, yes, I think these 3 movies I want my kids to watch. So as my interpretation of Dad movie, again, they might come downstairs and see me watching these, and definitely these are kind of slower movies, so I may fall asleep watching them. So definitely I'm gonna give a yes to Dad movie on this one.
All right,
that is our review of Before Sunrise. Before we get to our send off, go ahead.
Man, I don't know. Just to like cap this off, this was crazy. Like, I don't think I've ever like had this sort of conversation with like 3 just like wild views that seem to deviate very deeply in some areas and then like totally rhyme in a bunch of others. I don't think I've ever had that experience with that with the movie before, and this movie lends itself to that so beautifully. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, I think we all we saw the same movie, but there are different lessons that we each pulled from it. And even when both of you dislike something, you disliked it for very different reasons. And, we all kind of, it's just, I really like that there is that, especially with a movie like this, you're seeing a lot of yourself. There's a lot of, self-reflection into watching it. So I don't know. Yeah, I love how this is a conversation type movie, so I very much enjoyed it. But before we get to our send-off, you can obviously find this podcast wherever you found it. The link tree for Not Your Father's Movies will be in the notes for this, but obviously you can find Not Your Father's Movies on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever podcasts are found. Individually, you can follow this podcast on Twitter @MyMovieFixPod and on Instagram @MyMovieFixPod. Where can people find you guys?
NYF Movies. Our at NYF Movies, that's our Twitter handle. You can go ahead and shout us out like how much you disagree with us. Our Instagram @Not Your Father's Movies. Mike runs that Instagram. He always posts a lot of really fun questions. I recommend you check that out sometime. And then you can follow our Facebook page @Not Your Father's Movies. Lastly, our email, notyourfathersmovies@gmail.com. If you disagree with anything that I've said on this podcast, feel free to shoot any of us an email, tweet, comment. We'd love to hear from y'all.
Liz, are you going to shout yours out?
Oh.
No.
I mean, I don't have a movie account at all. So.
No, I mean, just like I said, if you want people to follow you and your takes or whatever.
If you want to follow me, I am at lissy.more on Instagram. And I'm on Twitter at that handle too, but don't post on Twitter much. So come see cute pictures of my kids and musings about life sometimes.
Indeed. All right. And if you're listening to this, follow, like, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, leave 5-star reviews. Anything less than 5 stars, just, listen to another episode and then leave 5 stars, so yeah.
Keep listening until it's 5 stars. That's all I'm going to say.
If you have a friend that doesn't like movie podcasts, lie to them, say it's about history or whatever their interests are. Keep spreading the word. All right. And our final section is our send-offs, our goodie bag, our parting gift, something we've seen through the week or just something completely non-movie related that brought us a little bit of joy that we want to pass along to you. We think you might enjoy as well. So, Jesse, do you have a parting gift for the folks?
So I recently got a haircut. My haircut was all crazy. I just went to Supercuts. See, Supercuts is not known for having good haircuts, for not doing much. I think they normally do like 15 minutes here and you're out. But I happened to get there just at the end of a dude shift. His name was Edgar. If he ever opens his own barbershop, it'll be called Edgar Scissorhands. And this dude is awesome, man. He was the only one there, and I was the last person in. So he just like took his time with me. I showed him what I wanted, and he got excited. He's just used to doing a little bit of trimming, but no, I needed like most of my hair to come off. And like he faded it real nice. He spent a good long time, an hour 15 on my hair. I've never even had that happen before. I don't do much with myself, but if y'all want a good cheap haircut, I recommend you go to Supercuts.
This particular Supercuts.
At the last half hour, and they will spend more time on you, and hopefully you get somebody who's really into art like he was, and because he was talking about like sculpting my hair, I'm like, cool, man, that sounds great. And yeah, he did a great job. Phenomenal job, Edgar.
Thank you, Edgar.
You guys can't see, but we're videoing, so I can see he's got the fans. The first thing I noticed was, he's got the fade. I didn't want to bring it up. It's like, I co-signed Edgar's Supercuts.
Cool. Yeah.
All right, Liz, got a part to give?
Yeah, today I spent around 30 minutes. I was waiting for something, and I had to wait in a beautiful courtyard. And I spent 30 minutes watching the sunlight doppling through the leaves of the trees. And it was a really good reminder of how beautiful, like, really simple things are. And I just watched, like, the tree branches sway in the wind and just, like, all the different shades of green in the sun. And it got me thinking about how wonderful it is to be human, and how, like, almost everybody in the entire world thinks that the same thing like that is beautiful. And it's just kind of part of the human experience. And I just got to sit there and just pause and just think about beauty and just be in that moment. So that was a really nice part of my week.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I want to go lay down in front of a tree right now. Like,
yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah. A friend of mine went to high school with Facebook friends. So she just went to I think it was Yosemite, and it's like I just she's been posting like beautiful nature pictures all week, and it just made me think about how people you just don't get that. I mean, I'm sure you can step out your window and see the occasional nice sunset, but you just don't get to appreciate nature. So people get on planes, trains, and automobiles and fly just to see a big park and just to see a beautiful scenic view every now and then. Yeah, so very much recommend that. Me. It's actually an album, Goodbye and Good Riddance, JuiceWrld. I a huge JuiceWrld fan for some reason. I don't know. Like, basically, his music is like, I don't know how young you children are, but during my era was the, Blink-182, Sum 41, like that's like that pop rock or whatever, that's JuiceWrld is kind of like that for people of this era. Unfortunately he did pass away, so rest in peace, JuiceWrld. But it's like, it is that kind of angsty, it's rap, but it's like a little more, rocky rap, and it's like, it's that era. It's the Sum 41s for a new generation that likes rap, so it's it was very interesting hearing them. And like I said, his album, it was for younger people, kids half my age were listening to it, but I really liked it, and it was one of my most played. I think the Spotify end of year wrap up, whatever, and his album was, I think, my second most played album that year, and I posted, and I got a little, bashed by people my age. Why are you listening to JuiceWrld? Because I don't know, it's just I don't know. I love that emotional rap or whatever. It's just the little poppy beats or whatever, and I just I went on a YouTube rabbit hole, and he was like a really, really good freestyler. He could just freestyle for days and just talk about anything. And just rewatching this, it just made me nostalgic for emotional type stuff. So I re-listened to his album, and I still love it. So Goodbye and Good Riddance, JuiceWrld. If you haven't listened to it because it's not your bag, I recommend just give it a shot. I really, really enjoyed it. But so that's my send off. Check it out. And that is it for this episode. Part 1 of the 3-part crossover episode is wrapped up. Thank you very much for listening. Again, I am Sirr of the My Movie Fix Pod.
I'm Jesse from Not Your Father's Movies.
I'm Liz.
Indeed. And thank you guys for listening.